Do you find it hard to explain to friends and family what you now do? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure out challenges on your own? We have created a community for ex-corporate people running their own business who want to live a life they love whilst giving back to their community. This is the Build, Live, Give show. We bring you first-hand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day. We get real with no corporate BS. And now your host, Paul Higgins.
Welcome to the Build, Live, Give show. I'm Paul Higgins and I'm your show host. And today I'm very excited to have AJ Wilcox from B2 Linked. AJ combined his love for technology and marketing and left university and went into agencies, and he predominantly focused on SEO and PPC. From there, he continued to improve his skills and ended up spending a lot of time on LinkedIn ads. Actually, he wasn't aware until a LinkedIn expert or a salesperson told him that he was actually one of the biggest spenders on LinkedIn ads in the world. And he soon realized that there wasn't anyone putting content out there, and he was probably the number one expert on LinkedIn ads. And unfortunately, he was let go, and he, with his wife, Jessica, and their 4 kids, had to make a really tough choice as what they should do. And he got some great advice from some friends to go alone and build his own agency. And that's where he brings some enormous benefit to this podcast. He really unpacks the secrecy behind LinkedIn ads and also talks about the exciting opportunity of LinkedIn native video. So please grab your pens and paper because AJ gives a lot of value within this podcast. So what I'll do now is hand you over to AJ Wilcox from B2 Linked. If you're enjoying listening to these journeys, just letting you know we have a community for ex-career people running profitable businesses just like you. It's called BLG Boost. You get exclusive access to a forum of like-minded peers answering your most pressing questions 24/7. You get specific action tips to solve your most common challenges. You get trusted suppliers to remove lost time. You also get access to member exclusive offers to save you money. You also get access to myself as a coach directly on a one-on-one basis. You get weekly videos from global experts. And finally, you get monthly webinars solving topics mentioned in popular threads. If you're tired of being alone and want to rapidly grow your dream business, go to buildlivegive.com/BLG Boost. This link is in the show notes. Please check it out. Okay, I will see you inside. Welcome, AJ Wilcox from B2 Linked to the Build, Live, Give show. We're so excited to have you on here today, AJ, and we're going to get to know lots about your story and what you do today. But why don't you just start with a bit of your backstory?
Sure thing, Paul. So I've been doing digital marketing for about the last 10 years. I live in the state of Utah in the United States. And I guess to back up a little bit, I started by going to school here in Utah, and I knew I was really into technical stuff. I was working kind of a high-level tech support job and really loved it. But then I also knew that I was going into marketing, and how in the world, this is the fears of a college student. How in the world was I ever going to get a job in marketing if all I ever knew was technical? And so after graduating, I went and did some agencies where I learned about digital marketing, search engine optimization specifically, kind of landed into pay-per-click advertising, and then we'll go into it here in a little bit, but kind of my magic is where I landed into LinkedIn advertising.
Brilliant. And what's something that your family or friends know about you outside of work that the BLG audience don't?
I'm just a giant kid. So I spend a lot of weekends building fun toys. So I have like Nerf crossbows I've built out of popsicle sticks and stuff. And I've got I actually own a go-kart. So even as an adult where I have a car and that's a better mode of transportation getting around, I still really enjoy flying around the streets of Lehigh, Utah in my go-kart.
Oh, fantastic. And you also said pre-show that you're taking up skiing as well. You're just starting that?
Yeah, I actually skied my very first black at the beginning of this year. That was my goal. So I'm hopefully going to keep getting better.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. And if you sort of go back when you're in the technical role within one of the universities, I think, is that where you first did some work?
Yeah, I was doing second level tech support for my university.
Yeah, great. And then you went into marketing. What was sort of the reason you chose to go down that agency path? I know you said that was because you wanted some marketing skills under your belt, but was there any other reason that sort of drove you to go that path?
Marketing was really interesting to me because when I was little, my dad was a big Trekkie. We call them Star Trek fans. And between episodes, when there were the commercials on, he would ask me about the commercials and he'd say things like, who do you think that commercial is trying to talk to? And we'd be analyzing audiences. So from that point, I knew I really liked advertising. And then in one of my classes, I had a marketing class. One of our guest lecturers came in and he started talking about search engine optimization. And, I was really worried about, wow, I only know computers, but I want to be in marketing. And here's this guy was talking about digital marketing. It's marketing using computers. And I went, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I went up after class and I begged him for an internship. And that really started my digital marketing career. So that's why I went into agencies, was because his company, he happened to run an agency.
Great. And how long did you spend working for someone else in an agency?
That agency, I was there for about a year. Then I went to another agency for about a year and a half. And then I spent pretty much the rest of my career in-house.
Great. And when did you decide, what was the defining moment that you decided to start your own business?
Really good question. So all the way through college, I was really excited about entrepreneurship. I would go to these entrepreneurship meetups and be involved in entrepreneurship groups. And I just loved the energy. I loved what people were talking about. But if you would have asked me at the time, AJ, do you think you'll ever start your own business someday? I said, nah, I don't think so. I don't have the guts. So fast forward, I was in my most recent company. I was working in corporate and, really, really doing well using LinkedIn ads. And previous to that, I'd never heard of them. I didn't even know they existed. And so throughout that process, I would have the sales reps come up to me and say, AJ, we love your leads. Keep it up. And I was going, wow, there's really something to this. But every time I ran up against a problem with LinkedIn ads, I'd go and Google, how do you do X? How do you do Y? And no one was out there talking about it. So I remember coming home and talking to my wife one day and said, honey, I really think that we have a potential business opportunity here because no one is out there talking about, publishing, speaking about LinkedIn ads. And I'm pretty sure I know more about it than anyone else in the world right now. And she said, of all the crazy harebrained ideas you bring up, that actually sounds the best. So I kind of had that on the back of my mind. And then after about 2.5 years of working at this company, I got walked into the HR office and realized I was being let go. And so that was the impetus for starting the company, because if you would have asked me before, I would have said, nope, I'm very conservative. I'm financially conservative. I don't like the idea of going without a secure paycheck. But it's amazing how you realize how that secure paycheck isn't so secure when someone else can just make a decision that you don't need to be around anymore.
Yeah, and did you have any forewarning that that was going to occur to you when you walked in and they let you go?
No, I'd been not very happy at work for about the last 4 months at that point. I got a new boss and he was, not great to work with. And if I'm not happy, I'm pretty sure that my boss was feeling it too. So maybe that should have been enough detail for me, but it wasn't. I wasn't expecting it.
Great. And if you think of that moment when you were let go, but into the new opportunity, what were some of the key fears that sort of were in your mind or in your mind at the time? What was sort of, what were you thinking?
I had 5 fears, my wife and all 4 kids. That was just a terrible feeling as the family's breadwinner to go home and tell your wife, hey, honey, we don't have income anymore, so we better figure something out here. So that was really scary. And in fact, the next 5 months of our lives were some of the most stressful, some of the scariest months of my existence. But I'll tell you, I wouldn't trade them for anything. And I am so, so grateful that happened, because that was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah. And was there ever a time during that 5 months that you thought, maybe it's time that I just went back and got another job in corporate?
Probably not. Right from the very beginning, I realized that controlling your own schedule, not having meeting after meeting after meeting all across your calendar and having someone else come in and bulldoze your priorities, I realized that there was a lot of freedom. And even if I was going to make less money out on my own, I did not want to go back to someone else planning my calendar.
Yeah, that's so true. And, I interview so many people that give me that type of response. And I know for me, that's the case. Often I'll get asked by friends, would you ever go back to corporate? And I can't think of any circumstance that would get me back there. And later on, we'll talk a little bit about the commercial side, because I know that can be very challenging. And what sort of help, other than, Jessica, your wife, who was very supportive, as you've said, what other help did you get as you went through this transition?
I got some of the best advice. When I was very first starting the company, I have lots of friends who run advertising agencies and marketing agencies. So as I would talk to them, I'd say things like, hey, I'm thinking about partnering with so-and-so to build this company because I've never done something like that before. And I had two different friends at the same time, both very successful and I respect highly. Both gave me the same advice. They said, can you do it yourself? Is there anything with your company that you're not able to do? And I was like, no, I pretty much can do everything. I just maybe need some help. I want to move a little faster. And they said, nope, just do it yourself. Trust me, having a partner is not what you want right now. You just need to get it off the ground. And thank you to those two gentlemen, because that was the best advice I've ever gotten, I think.
Brilliant. Excellent. And any other advice that you got that, you could pass on to the BLG audience?
I think not advice that I've gotten from anyone else, but advice that I've kind of come up with through my entrepreneurial journey, because I communicated to you guys that, I really didn't fancy myself an entrepreneur for quite a while, really until it happened. And I was only able to do that because I had found a niche. I found something that was so valuable that I was the very best in the world at. And so if I would have just come, kicking and screaming right out of college and said, okay, I'm going to go and be an entrepreneur, I'm going to go find a business to start, I don't think I would have been nearly as successful as going and spending some time in corporate, building up a skill set that was literally unlike anyone else had at that point. And then was able to start a business around that. So I think BLG listeners, you're probably, there might be some of you who are going, I know I'm an entrepreneur. I don't want to be stuck inside of corporate. My recommendation to you would be go find that skill. Don't be afraid of going to work for someone else and get paid to learn and get paid to bring those skills on. That doesn't make you any less of an entrepreneur. And then as soon as you have that, that's your time to leap.
And how did you know that you were best in the world? I know a lot of people sometimes always worry about there's someone out there doing it better than them, and that always plays in their mind. How did you know, or how did you go and calibrate that you were the best in the world at LinkedIn ads?
I would, I'd search around. I have you ever used Google Alerts or talkwalker.com alerts? They're like, anytime something is said on the web, you can have it alert you and show you the web page. I had these alerts set on anything around LinkedIn advertising. I was out there publishing under a pseudonym. I was, trying to pay attention to any time someone talked about it, and there just wasn't anyone out there talking about it. And then at the time, my LinkedIn rep kind of let it slip that I was the largest spender in the entire world. And so it was at that point I went, okay, well, I'm spending more money than anyone else. Plus, I'm not seeing anyone else out there talking. I must be the best. And there could easily be someone else better than me, but I haven't seen them publishing yet.
Well, the next section is the build section, and we've sort of alluded to this, but if you walk into a party or you walk into a networking event and someone asks you, AJ, what do you do? How do you describe what you do?
I tell them I either tell them I'm a LinkedIn ads expert, or I run an agency that specializes just in LinkedIn ads. And at that point, if they raise an eyebrow or want to know more, then I know that this person's probably worth going a little bit deeper into. But most of the time I just get oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And, what for most people that you do meet, is it something that people deal with often, or is it still a bit of a black art, the art of LinkedIn ads?
I think it's still very black art. I don't know a whole lot of people who do a lot. However, I was speaking at a digital marketing conference here earlier this year, and it was the fourth time I've spoken at this conference series. It's called Hero Conf. It's all about paid ads. And in my session, I had people raise their hands, who is currently running LinkedIn ads? And 60% of the room's hands went up. And it was at that point I went, oh, okay, people are actually paying attention. This is happening. But before that, I mean, it would literally be like 5-6 hands in any session that I spoke at.
Great. And sort of who's your ideal client? Like what describes sort of the companies that LinkedIn ads work best for?
Yeah, so LinkedIn ads is going to work really well for what I've found are 3 different types of companies. So number 1, you have business to business lead gen with large deal sizes. So when I say large deal size, I mean, if you're from a deal that you get from a client you land, if you're going to earn, let's say, $15,000 or more from one of these deals, whether it's upfront or over the lifetime of that deal, that's going to be a no-brainer for LinkedIn. It's really high value leads. Number 2 is going to be white collar recruiting of almost any kind. It makes a lot of sense to use LinkedIn's advanced targeting to offer people positions, jobs, and fill your recs that way. And then finally, I'd say in higher education. So the targeting on LinkedIn works really well around education, what degree you have, is it an advanced degree, what you got your degree in, from where, and that can be really good for, let's say, a master's of business kind of program looking to recruit someone who has a bachelor's but doesn't yet have a master's.
Great. And what are some of the common mistakes that you see people making around LinkedIn ads?
I see people, so this might get a little bit on the technical side, maybe I'll pick something else, but I'll say, when setting up a campaign on LinkedIn, you're really getting to decide who it is you're showing the ads to. And their targeting is hands down the best in the world for targeting business professionals. And then what I'll see a lot of times when I'm auditing accounts, I'll see someone name a campaign, White Paper 1, 2017 webinar, things like that. And what that means is that campaign is dead. I mean, after you are done showing that one white paper, after people are sick of signing up for the webinar, that campaign is trash. You can't use it again. It's not helpful. So what I recommend doing is start campaigns around an evergreen audience. And so let's say you're going after IT directors and VPs. You can create a campaign that's literally called IT directors and VPs. And then you can put ads inside that bucket. Once those ads tire out, you can pause them and launch new ones. And then what you end up with is very, very few campaigns in an account. It's very easy to look over and manage. It's very clean. And it's very easy to measure performance from one asset to another. And you get to carry this performance with you rather than invest money into this performance and then just have it die when you can't use it again.
Excellent. And how do you make revenue in the agency today?
So we charge as a percentage of spend. And so if someone's like, we'll charge 20% of ad spend. So if someone spends $10,000 on LinkedIn, we'll send them an invoice for $2,000 at the end of the month.
And what's sort of the average spend that a client would invest on LinkedIn ads?
You know, the vast majority that I run into are just testing into the platform. This is a new platform for them. And so I recommend that they spend somewhere between about $3,000 and $5,000 to test into it to see, is this going to work or is this not? So the average is probably pretty low, but there are quite a few advertisers out there who are already spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month. And they're just ideal. We just work magic on those accounts.
And what are some of the biggest learnings that you've experienced or that you've learned through this journey of running your own agency?
You know, I think there's a big difference between small companies and large companies. I'm still trying to kind of put my finger on it, but what I find is that if you talk to someone at a small company, at a startup where people are scrappy, they really value transparency. They value personality and and that's really good because I kind of exude personality. I just have a lot of energy. But with bigger companies, I have a hard time when I'm expressing personality and trying to make personal connections to them. I don't get a whole lot of reciprocation there, and I'm trying to figure out if that's larger companies are. Maybe they just get so many pitches. They're so tired of talking to people that they just don't put any emotion into it. But that's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Great. And other than that challenge, what are some of the other challenges you face today in scaling your agency?
LinkedIn ads is pretty expensive. And so when I say that, I mean, you're probably going to pay somewhere between about $5 and $8 per click on LinkedIn. And if you go somewhere else in the world, like I wonder if Australia clicks are cheaper. I wonder if clicks in the UK are cheaper. But that's pretty much what you'll pay here in the US. And so because of that, it really only makes sense to run LinkedIn ads for when you have really large deal sizes, when you're going to make a lot of money from a relationship or a deal. So because of that, I think one of the biggest challenges is we kind of weed through people. I'll a lot of times get someone on the phone who wants to run LinkedIn ads, and I'll tell them, you know what, I just don't think it's not going to provide a return for you because the ads are so expensive up front. And so I think that's the biggest challenge is there are so many people who want to advertise on LinkedIn that I think LinkedIn has priced themselves out of the market. And so not everyone is a really good fit for it.
And do you see any of that changing? Like, do you think they'll actually adjust that to become more affordable in the future, or do you think they'll hold their strategy?
They just released an ad unit here about 5 months ago, that is a form that pops down directly from the ad. So generally the flow goes, someone sees your ad, they click it, and then they go to a landing page. And by that time you've paid let's say it's $6. You've paid $6 to have someone go to your landing page. And then let's say 8 to 12% of those people convert. And so you're going to pay, what is that? Like, let's say it's $80 per lead or per conversion.
Yes.
But with these lead gen ads, what they do is anytime someone interacts with that ad, it's going to pop down a form. And they haven't gone to a landing page, but they are immediately presented with the form. So theoretically, your cost per conversion would be the same as your cost per click. And so that could decrease the price of your conversions, your leads, into a small fraction of what it was before. So that's really helpful. And not every company works really well with that type of ad unit, but it can be a good opportunity. And then LinkedIn just barely released native video, and video ads just are amazing on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And so I would be shocked if LinkedIn didn't jump on that bandwagon. Video is so much less expensive than link click traffic. And so it remains to be seen how LinkedIn prices its video, but I wouldn't be surprised if video is a really good endpoint for advertisers who maybe don't have that much budget to spend.
Yeah, and have you seen much of a change in strategy since Microsoft took over LinkedIn?
Not much. Both organizations are very large and very slow moving. Mm-hmm. And so I would anticipate seeing a lot of changes that Microsoft owns Bing, and Bing Ads has made incredible strides over the last few years of catching up to Google AdWords. So if they were able to share some of their learnings with LinkedIn Ads, I think the platform could change immensely. But honestly, I don't see that happening until maybe late 2018, early 2019.
Yeah, I know for me and often a lot of the BLG community that I work with just find LinkedIn a little frustrating, because the API is so closed. So, it's sometimes so hard to integrate into other platforms. And also the search functionality, there's so much information in there. But like for me, we had this great conversation, and I got to stick my hand up and say you were so professional when I said, look, this is what I want to do with LinkedIn ads. And you said, no, look, Paul, I don't think that's quite the right fit for you. And that sort of goes back before where I think your honesty and your ability to actually not take money, but actually give people great advice is probably why you're scaling so quickly. But, I wanted to find people that were ex-corporate now running a small business. And I know the data's there, but I just can't search it. It's so difficult. Do you think those type of things are being worked on in the background, or do you think, once again, that's sort of a slow ship and will take a long time to change?
I do think they are working on some new targeting facets. Like you said, they just have a wealth of data. And so I think what they're trying to do is talk to their largest advertisers and say, okay, what new targeting would you want? And if several people are asking for that, I think they'd go and build it. So, it'd be really nice if they just built out tons and tons of targeting like Facebook ads has. I think, they sit on the most valuable database, I think, in the world. So I really hope they make great use of it, because I want to make great use of it too.
Yeah, well, you think they do it, and I love the analogy you used around being in the ground that Microsoft has gained there. So hopefully they do that, and hopefully some of the executives listen to this podcast and take on your sound advice. As far as commercial wage, you spoke about the fact that it was certainly in the first 5 months was very tight. But are you in a position at the moment that you're earning a commercial wage similar to what you would if you were still back in corporate?
Oh, so much more, thank goodness.
Brilliant.
Yeah, one of the biggest learnings I took away from starting my own company is I was wondering, is starting a whole company around a product so small as LinkedIn ads, will that even be able to support my family? And the answer, thank goodness, has been yes. And I do know people who've gone into niches that are so narrow that they can't make a living from it. But one of the biggest learnings I've taken from it is, if you're valuable enough to go into a company and make, high 5 figures, low 6 figures, that the company is getting 5 to 10 times that value. And so when you go and start your own company, you're able to capture all that value for yourself. So yeah, I'm big fan of starting your own deal and capturing all that value.
Great. And any tips? Because there's a lot of listeners out there that have BLG listeners that have certainly got the job that they wanted. So the dream business. They've certainly got the lifestyle, but the financials just quite aren't there at the moment. Is there any tips you could give, given the fact that you've been so successful, and what they could do to improve that situation?
I think I was really blessed in that by the time that I was presented with that situation, I did have a skill that no one else was exploiting. So I count myself very lucky and very blessed, and I don't know that it would be repeatable for me. So I would just say, if you're in a position, be scrappy, be a fighter. Every single interaction you have with someone else, everything that you do marketing wise is an opportunity to invest. It's an investment in a future relationship, if you give someone free help sometime, you have no idea that a year and a half down the road, they're going to make an intro for someone who's going to be a valuable partnership for you. So, if you're in that position where you're able to give time, give as much time, give as much value, give as much expertise. And I think it's going to turn out really, really well for you down the road. But it also means you're going to have to be scrappy in the near term when finances aren't yet in your favor.
And the advice I always give people is, under promise and over deliver. So I know for me, I said to my wife, I'll earn this amount of money in this time. And if I had my time again, I would have, times the time by 4 and divided the amount by 4. So I think if anyone's listening and they're about to leave and set up your own business, like you've said, and you've demonstrated here that it's a brilliant journey. It's definitely fantastic, and the rewards come. But just make sure that you are realistic around the time it's going to take to get that. Because sort of, how long did it take you to hit a wage that you were comfortable with?
It was 5 months until I looked back at it and said, wow, we brought in the same revenue as I would have made at my last job this month. So that's what it took, is 5 months. But that was 5 months of absolute hell up until that point.
Brilliant. And speaking of support, so we mentioned Jessica before. If Jessica was listening to this podcast, what would you love to say to her about the support she's given you through this journey?
She has been just so wonderful to me. I mean, standing at the sidelines, we got early on in the company, we got into a fight because I got upset that she bought the Kraft macaroni and cheese from the store and not the generic brand. So she has put up with a lot of crap during this whole process. And the entire time she's just stood behind me and said, whatever you think is best, whatever you need to spend on the business, go ahead. I'm not going to meddle. And she's just been an immense support. So if she's going to be listening, I'm going to tell her, honey, I love you. And thank you so much for supporting me, even though sometimes I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, the next section is the live section. And what are some of the daily habits that you do every day that help make you be as successful as you are?
So exercise is a big part of my routine. I've noticed that, I've got a little bit of an eating addiction. I'm not a skinny chap. So if I don't work out, I'm really sluggish. And so pretty much 2 hours every morning, starting at 5 a.m., I'm up, just exercising and working. I love to hike. I love endurance sports. I'm doing a triathlon this weekend. So that's what I need to function.
Brilliant. And what do you do through the winter months? Is it more indoor? How do you cater for that when it gets cold over there? You said, -10 or something in winter?
Yeah. So in the summer, I absolutely love hiking. And then I got really sick of in the winter not being able to hike. So I went and bought snowshoes. So in the winter, I'm snowshoeing.
Brilliant. And the next section is the cause section. So is there a cause or a community that you passionately support? And if so, what is that?
Yeah, my absolute favorite cause, there's a charity called Operation Underground Railroad. And anyone who wants to check it out, it's OURrescue.org. And this might get a little bit heavy for the G-rated podcast, but essentially they're a group of militarized spies who go in and free children from sex trafficking. And I can't think of a better use of someone's time, talents, and their skills even. I can't think of a more worthy cause. So I try to contribute to them whenever I can, and I'm super happy to help them out any way I can.
Great. And how did you come across them in the first place, AJ?
So they are actually based here in Utah. And so a couple of times I've run into people who have done volunteer work for them. And I ended up getting to watch a documentary they put together about a sting operation they put together. And anyway, ever since then, I've been a huge fan.
Excellent. The next section is the action section and the last section. So the first question is your number one personal productivity tip.
Ooh, that's a tough one because I really don't feel productive for the most part. I'll say this, and it kind of blends into the exercise answer I gave in the last one. I got one of those walking desks, a treadmill desk, and I've found that if I were sitting in a chair, it's really easy for me to just sit back and go, oh, I'm going to go and look at my RSS feed or check Twitter. But when I'm walking on the treadmill, and it's just really easy to concentrate on work. So I think for me, it's just keep moving. I have ADHD and always this need to be moving and fidgeting. So the treadmill desk has worked great for my productivity.
Brilliant. And how do you go with typing? Because I use the stand-up desk and I love that. But I've always been intrigued how to just give us a quick snapshot of how you use the walking desk. What are sort of the activities you do?
So if I'm doing complex reporting in Excel or any Photoshop, I have to slow it down to about 2 miles per hour. But generally for everything work-wise, typing and moving the mouse, I'm okay to do 3 miles per hour. When I hop on the phone and I can't be out of breath, I'll lower it down to about 2.5. Sometimes I'll have to lower my mouse sensitivity if I'm doing something like Photoshop, but generally it's there is an armrest, so your body might be bouncing, but your hands are pretty still.
Brilliant. And the next is around apps. So what are the favorite apps that you've got either on your home screen, on your phone, or on your desktop or laptop?
Okay, so I'm a little bit of a geek, if that hasn't come across. And I've gotten into home automation lately. So we have a home automation system called Wink, where I can control, lights, blinds, door locks, that kind of thing. And so pretty much all of my different home automation apps are on the home. I have a button that when I'm coming home from a lunch, I can have the air conditioner in my office running. I've got the app that controls all the lights. I have the one that controls the garage. So that's where I'm geeking out with the most right now.
Brilliant. And I'm actually building a house at the moment, so I'm very interested. Is it something that is easy to install for people that want to do something like that?
Yeah, actually, my wife, because I was so busy, I worked for a home automation company at one point that did installations, and so I've always had this really exciting interest in the technology. But my wife saw I was really busy, so she went through and did all of the programming, all of the piecing together and assembling the network, buying all the components. The only thing that we needed help with was we had some of the light switches in our house that were three-way switches that we couldn't figure out, and I heard lots of screaming when she was getting electrocuted trying to put them on. But we had an electrician come in and put about 4 or 5 different light switches on. The rest she did herself, and neither of us are super handy. So I'd say it's fairly achievable.
Brilliant. And obviously there's the LinkedIn app that you would use all the time. Any key tips you've got for people that are using the LinkedIn app?
So this podcast is going to air by the time everyone will have this feature. So I'm really excited to talk about it. So today is August 7th, where I'm at, and I would say probably a third of LinkedIn users by this point have access to native video. But by the time you listen to this, you should have native video. So open up the LinkedIn app, click on post, because you're going to post a new status update. And then one of your options there is going to be a little video camera. Take advantage of video while it's new and while people don't have it figured out yet, because it's really powerful. I posted my first video, and it has over 7,000 views so far, whereas the last post that I did only had about 4,000. So take advantage of new features, and it's so powerful to stay top of mind with everyone that's in your network and connected to you.
Brilliant. And just around topic and timing, any suggestions on what they should do as their first video?
I really feel like we all know something that no one else or very few other people do. So start sharing your expertise. And of course, that leads really nicely into the fact that when you're sharing your expertise, like I'm on there talking about LinkedIn ads. When you're sharing your own expertise, the people who respond are going to be your ideal customers, clients, because they're asking you about what you're the very best in the world at. So I'd stick it close to what you can offer that no one else can.
Great. And time, like 1 minute, 2 minutes. How long do you recommend they shoot the video for?
Mine was about 2 minutes long, and I felt like that was maybe a little bit on the long side. It's so new that there just aren't any best practices yet. I would recommend try to keep it around a minute if you can, but if it's really deep, explorational into a topic, then feel free to go longer. But we just don't know what people are willing to spend time on. So maybe do a little bit of testing. Do something less than 30 seconds and then do something longer than 2 minutes, and let me know what works best.
The next one is around your favorite podcast or book and why.
So we've talked about this before. I am a huge advocate of podcasts and audiobooks. I won't read the written word. I just don't have time, but I'll listen to podcasts all day long. My very favorite podcast is Social Media Examiner's social media marketing podcast. And the reason why is because I obviously do a lot with social media. It's what I pay a lot of attention to. And every single week, Michael Stelzner, who runs the Social Media Marketing World Conference, he'll bring on a new expert at some different area of social media. So they'll talk about live video, they'll talk about LinkedIn ads, they'll talk about Facebook ads. And if you'll just pay attention to the podcast, you will get MBA level education on social media. And it's unparalleled.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard that podcast, but I've heard him interviewed about what he does, and he just seems such a relaxed, open, friendly sort of guy. I don't know what he's like to meet, but certainly the way that he came across on a podcast, he seemed a fantastic guy.
He is fantastic. Very, very polished as a human being. If you've ever heard him speak, I obviously don't come across super eloquent here. He is very eloquent. All of his words are chosen very carefully, and there's no ums or ahs in his speech. He's an elegant dude.
Brilliant. And the last question is some advice. So, you've had a brilliant career. You've been at the forefront of SEO, PPC, now LinkedIn. What's some advice you've got, whether it's social or actually just running your own business for the BLG audience that you'd love to leave us with?
I got a lot of advice early on that I wish I had followed. So I think I got all the advice I needed, but there were things like, every marketing podcast you listen to, someone will tell you, start building your list, build your list. And I just went, you know what? I'm so busy with clients and doing work and earning money. I just don't have time. And so currently I have this list that's probably around 300 people, and it's just not worth very much. So I would say, it's really good advice. I wish I would have taken it earlier, but I definitely heard it. I was just stubborn.
Yeah, and I think the Ryan Levesque with his ask model, I think the nurture sequence that sort of sits behind and the proper tagging of your list, I think, is absolutely super critical. And I was the same as you. I've heard that over and over and again and just didn't do anything about it. My list is around 1,000, but the other day actually, well, it didn't take me a day. It took me a couple of weeks to go through and tag every one of them. And actually now we're going out through a nurture sequence. But if I had have done that correctly at the start, it would have saved me a lot of time. So I completely endorse what you're saying there.
Wow.
The last is about how can people find out more about you? You've obviously, they'll find you on LinkedIn, but how else can people get in contact and maybe use your services?
So if you go to b2linked.com, that's the letter B, the number 2, and the word linked.com, there's a form at the bottom of the website. And if you fill that in, you will not be put in touch with a salesperson. You will not be put into a complex nurturing workflow. You will get me, and I don't sell. So if you have any questions about LinkedIn ads, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll also say that if you're interested in running LinkedIn advertising, I have a special offer I've put together. So it's B2linked/checklist. And what that is it's the checklist. It's an infographic that we've put together, the same model that we follow when we launch a client. This is everything you need to get started advertising on LinkedIn. So if that's something you want to try, go get the checklist. And then last of all, I'm on Twitter, really active. So Wilcox AJ on Twitter. Tweet at me anytime and I'll usually get back pretty quickly.
Excellent. And as I said earlier, for the BLG community, when I reached out to AJ, I heard him on a podcast. He gave some brilliant information. Then I contacted him. And to your credit, you actually said, look, for what you're trying to do at the moment, LinkedIn ads aren't the best, but maybe you should do something else. And, I think that's why you were, getting that commercial salary in 5 months, and you're doing so well, because I think you're a natural giver. And I really appreciate you giving me advice then, but more importantly, giving the BLG audience such a brilliant set of advice in this podcast today. So we love having you and your enthusiasm in the BLG community, and we wish you every success in the future.
Well, thanks, Paul. I'm a huge fan of transparency, and I sure appreciate being in front of your group. You guys deserve it.
Brilliant. Great. Thanks, AJ, and have a great night.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give show. If you found this show helpful, please share it with others so we can build businesses, live great lives, and give back to the community. If you would like to join the BLG community, go to our website, www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.